Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week. And hi, Barry. How are you doing?
Hi, Dale. Doing very well. So another good topic to talk about today.
Exactly. We are going to talk about when we claim we are staying in relationships for the other person.
Yeah.
And with the emphasis on claim there.
I would say another way of saying it is also we're selling ourselves on the idea that we're staying for the other person, which is another way of putting it, because we do that as well.
Exactly. So, this is a really interesting topic. There's so many elements into this. I mean, just the word that keeps coming up to me is arrogance. The arrogance to think that you are doing somebody a favor by staying in a relationship with them when you don't really want to be here. I'm
Yeah.
here for the other person. So I think that's something to look at, but also to really, as we keep hinting at, is that true? Are you really staying for the other person? Or is there something? I mean, this is a great follow on from our conversation last week about the projection. Are we really staying in the relationship for some unconscious needs that we have that we're not acknowledging?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think?
Absolutely. I want to throw another one into the mix as well, which is there's also the one where we may not feel like we deserve to have what we want, we should say for the other person, because at least they're getting what they want, which is another form of projection as well, because it puts them in the pedestal and we demean ourselves because we're not actually saying, you know what, I need to walk away because for my own safety, for my own health, for my own choices, I deserve whatever that is. So we stay with that person because we think maybe because we don't think we can do better. But secondly, we think that we're staying for their sake to avoid looking at our own, I won't say shortcomings, but our own disowning of our choices.
Interesting. Yes, that's interesting. Gosh, yeah, that is a very interesting one. Yeah, not feeling that you have the right or deserve to walk away from a relationship to take care of your own needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Guilty.
So yeah, that's why I thought about it.
I've been guilty of the other one too, just in the sense of staying in a relationship where I didn't want to stay, but yeah, you're right. It comes down to the same thing. In the end, it was their needs are more important than mine. I'd rather
Right.
suffer, as in my mind, than hurt this other person. Because we talked about this again a few weeks ago in the obsessive relationships, especially when you're in a relationship where somebody may say, I would die without you. I can't live without you. Sometimes people stay in that relationship because even though they don't want to, but the threat of what that other person might do to themselves if you were to leave is so great that you
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah. It's almost like extortion.
No, exactly. It is. It's
Yeah.
blackmail, for sure, emotional blackmail. So Barry, why don't you start us off on this one? You choose the lane.
Well, I'll speak to the one about the well, let me just, this is a confessions last week. This is a confession this week too. One of my relationships I was in when I was a lot younger, I was getting everything I thought I wanted from my partner. We'd been moving together, we're having a great time. But then she started bringing up the idea of engagement, like getting engaged. And I shut down, but I didn't leave. I basically stayed because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, that I wanted her to be taken care of. I was very, in quotes, selfless back then. Basically, I was not willing to take care of myself, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to give her what she wanted, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings by leaving. I was in this interesting dichotomy. And so for me, there was a part of me that was looking for the door, but afraid to go through it.
Yeah.
You know?
So interesting that there's a great example because that is really, it's like, so what did you really do? She was obviously clear about what her intentions were or what she wanted from the relationship. And you did the best you could at the time, as we all know.
But what I knew, yes.
but by not being honest about where you were in the relationship and what you saw the future of the relationship looking like, you actually just sort of trod water for a while. And so almost, and I'm not, I mean, this happens to all of us, and I'm making
Right.
here, but you in essence wasted her time by treading water, because sometimes it's just, especially in a situation like that where somebody is very clear about what the next step is for them in the relationship, what they would like, what their vision is,
Mm-hmm.
and by being sort of knowing deep down inside that that's not where you see it going, but by being the nice guy, as you say, and not fully saying, no, this relationship is clearly not headed in the same direction, or we're not headed in the same direction. Let's call it a day. It's been amazing up until this point, but we both have different ideas of where we're going. By shutting down, but physically staying there, she probably got the message of there is some hope. It's definitely not a definite no, because he's still here. And how long did it limp along in that state for?
Um, I don't know if the word thankfully is appropriate, but it was only like another month or so that we stayed together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was definitely an impatience on her part. I could feel it, and we were. I mean, I was. I think trying to think. I was probably late 20s, and she was a few years younger than me. So we weren't in the 30s yet.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of that sort of timing, it wasn't that bad. But in that moment, because it was really, frankly, we both met in a very sort of facilitative environment for loving. So we sort of started at a very high vibe, and so we can only maintain it for so long.
Mm.
And so the euphoria or the joy of it, the honeymoon phase we talked about before on other shows, is something that definitely happened because it was being accelerated or it was being emphasized because we both went through a couple of seminars together. So we'd broken down so many walls and saw each other so clearly and so vulnerably. There was such a great connection and such great intimacy and joy and all that wonderful thing. And it wasn't aligned where our values were and where we were going.
Mm.
And so I didn't at that time know how to disengage with a loving way because I never saw that before in my life. Didn't have any reference point. So I basically stayed beyond where I quote should have left for her sake.
Mm.
And it wasn't consciously doing that. I just didn't know how to do anything different. It was just what I had available to me as my limited toolkit at the time.
Yeah. And I think if I remember correctly, you did reference in a previous show, sorry to remind you of your confessions here, but I think I remember you saying once that you would tend to sort of steer the relationship in the direction where you became less desirable, put it that way, so they would do the finishing.
Yes, I could do that. Yes. One of my interesting skills.
Yeah, the withholding, the shutting down made you less, attractive in her eyes, and therefore she probably instigated the ending at some point.
Frankly, I think that was probably one of the first times I think I did that really intentionally.
Yeah, yeah.
Looking back now at that point, because there was some relationships before that just fell apart. That was the one, though, I think, where I first um, exhibited that skill of putting a person first and putting them in a place where they would walk away so they would be okay and I would suffer.
Mm,
I did that one a few times in relationships before I started doing this work.
yeah. We're going back to what I touched on in the very beginning, when
Hmm.
the word arrogance, and sometimes it really does take some hubris to think that we're doing anybody a favor by staying in a relationship with them.
We're so smart.
Um, but I did it too. I mean, I did it too. It was like I was projecting. We talked about projection last week. I was projecting my insecurities, my vulnerabilities, my um, fear of abandonment, my
Mhm.
all of those things about myself that would get triggered in a relationship. I would project onto them and say, I cannot make them suffer the way I would suffer, or that I do suffer when somebody ends a relationship with me. I'm talking about when I was very, very young and I had massive abandonment issues. And if you ended a relationship with me, which wasn't often because I was usually the one that would run before that could happen, but if it
Mhm.
did happen and you ended a relationship with me, it was it was mortally wounding for me when I was younger. I never could look at it as we just weren't a good fit. Immediately, I read it as I wasn't good enough, and that is a direct correlation to being, abandoned by my father as a child, and not just abandoned but ignored, because he would actually see me on a daily basis and just never acknowledge me. So it was a really the message that was ingrained in me was you're not even good enough to sort of talk to, never mind reject on a personal level. So I would take any type of an end of a relationship as evidence that I wasn't good enough. And oh my God, when you live with that, it's so yes, I would project that onto others. I would think that everybody else felt that way, and they didn't. but, but I was very, very gentle with the way that I would end a relationship, because I wanted nobody to suffer like I felt like I suffered. So
Right.
again, it's like playing God. I mean, that wasn't my position, and who is I to say what was better for them? To say that it's better that you're in a relationship with somebody that doesn't want to be here than being left and free to find the right person to be in a relationship with.
It's amazing, like you said earlier, the word hubris. That is so. It's amazing that we think we are being kinder because we think we know better than the other person.
Mhm,
Therefore, we should do this to make them feel better, without any consultation or any conversation or even any honest self-reflection.
mhm,
It's amazing that we do that. Yet we do. It's part. I mean, it's part of human, human character. We do that. It's just it. Sometimes I look at our human behavior. It's funny. One of my teachers way back used to talk about how it's such a cool skill. You can develop the idea of being like a Martian anthropologist, looking at humans through that lens of being, why do they do this?
mhm.
It makes things very easy to understand as being so ridiculous. But when we're in it as a human being doing this sort of thing in a relationship, there's a level of presumption that it's all okay to do this.
Yeah,
We don't know better. It's like we don't know better. We don't do better till we know better. But the thing is, we don't know better for a long time.
exactly. And some people, that can even. I'm thinking about people that say are in a committed relationship or in a marriage, say, and they want they want other relationships. So what they tell themselves, and it can work both ways, men and women can do it, is
Mhm.
I don't want to leave my spouse because I can't leave my spouse. I can't. I want to, but I can't. I love you, but I can't leave them. And what they do is they convince themselves that they're being honorable by not leaving their partner, but by having multiple affairs on the side. And they've convinced themselves that that is actually honorable, because rather than break up a marriage or hurt somebody by telling them the truth, I don't want to be with you anymore, or I might still want to be with you on a practical level, but I want all of these other relationships too. Instead of there being honesty in that, they truly convince themselves that they're doing it in the best interest of the other person. Now, when the other person finds out that they've been duped or fooled for many years to thinking the relationship is other than it was, that
Right.
level of pain is so incredible. And
Hmm.
the injustice of not giving somebody the freedom to make a choice, to say to your partner, you know what, I'm either bored or I'm whatever I am, and I would like to experience other relationships. Are you okay with an open marriage or an open relationship? Or is just have the discussion, but give the other person the respect to let them decide how they want to live their life. Don't
Absolutely.
concoct a story of I'm doing it for the other person, I'm such a great person.
That's the thing, is that sometimes some people do use that phrasing as an excuse to do selfish acts without actually doing what they really need to do. And the frustration of that is, it's like almost trying to be a martyr. Like I'm really doing the work to make sure they're okay, but I need to do what I'm doing for myself at the same time. And it's just this it doesn't work. And so you said, but it's so true. The other person is getting is going to, well, I was going to say, they're going to have massive trust issues when it shows up, because they didn't know this was going on, and suddenly they discover this. They're like, how do I trust you anymore?
Mm,
And so this is a visceral piece of the work. But I want to put another piece on the table, because I know there's something you can speak to perhaps more easily about staying for the other person when it involves children.
mhm.
Like staying with your ex partner because of the kids, which a lot of people have that story they run. How how to deal with that one.
Hmm. I think that's a great point to bring up. And yes, it absolutely is. And I believe, um, as adults, we owe it to children. We've brought them into this world, and we owe them something. We owe them, to protect them and take care of them and love them and nurture them until they are adults. I just believe that. But as far as staying in a relationship for your children, number one, I think we have to really take a lot of steps backwards, because there are some families. First of all, I think if you are in a relationship where you don't feel that you want to be in anymore, but you have children, and you're telling yourself I'm staying for the children. Number one, I would say discuss it with your partner. I mean, the two adults in the relationship, some do come to that agreement. Some do say, you know what, we know that this marriage is going to, or partnership is eventually going to separate. When is the right time to do it? Putting our children's needs, ahead of our own. When is when is the right time to do it? How we do it? I know many couples that have done that, and they have agreed to have separate lives very discreetly, but for their children, they're not pretending. So it's not pretending that they're in a loving relationship. That they are modeling healthy adults that prioritize their children's needs, and are there to co-parent in a very healthy, loving way. Children don't need to know the ins and outs of, well, has somebody got somebody on the side or what. But I just think, just be honest with each other. The two parents have to be honest with each other. The deception is what erodes at any healthy relationship. And
Yeah,
if one partner is being deceived and suspects they're being deceived, the children are going to feel that. They're going to be impacted that. So you are not doing anybody any favors by staying in that type of relationship. If there's honesty and integrity and openness and discussion, then I think that if you choose, I think you can also separate, and the children feel very loved. I mean, it's impactful for them. Their living situation changes. They have to then separate out their lives, usually between two houses now instead of one, and even that just can be disruptive for a child and create anger and upset. It's like they want their routine. They want their one bedroom with their one, all their toys in it, or their whatever it is they have in it that they want. So yeah, I just think it's the two adults are in the marriage or in the relationship. Those are the two that need to communicate honestly and healthily with each other, and come set up a plan that is the least damaging for the children. And if there is a lot of abuse or something like that going on in the relationship, and you can't talk to your partner about it, and you do want to leave, you are actually doing your children a huge favor to have them witness the strength of leaving an abusive relationship, as opposed to staying and suffering and giving them the impression that you're suffering because of them. That's not helping the children either at all.
absolutely. In fact, I want to underscore that last point, especially because the thing I want to bring into the conversation is that, as you said before, like we bring children into this world, the thing that we may not be aware of is that we're teaching them by everything we do.
Mm.
So we're witnessing and are sponges to what we teach them. That's it. We took it at work as well, because that's the way we learn ourselves about relationships from our parents and from the adults around us. So if you want your children to be to grow up with balanced viewpoints and understanding values about how to be in the world, the only way they're going to learn that, frankly, is by how you demonstrate it to them in front of them, not by teaching them, but by exampling it the way you are with your partner. So, as you said, have a conversation with your partner. Being the two adults is so fundamental, because if you are being vengeful against them, or if you're going through abuse with them and you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not being strong, as you said, it's realizing you're not doing it just for yourself. You're doing it for your children. In the sense you're showing to them what can work, what is possible, what is healthy, what is respectful. That you're not showing them, quote, a bad example by doing things that aren't healthy. So it isn't so much staying for their sake. It's about, are you showing them the right way to be in relationship or not to be in relationship
Yeah.
by how you your partner. So it's powerful to do this
No,
the right way.
exactly. And I have to put my hand up. I mean, I definitely stayed in an unhealthy relationship because I felt that was the right thing to do.
Hmm.
And it took professional help for me to see that I was a little sort of blinkered as to what I thought was the best for my children, and so the intention was great. My intention was to put their needs ahead of my own, but I wasn't seeing the full picture, and I wasn't acknowledging that wasn't the healthiest thing, and that
Hmm.
a separation was much healthier for them in the long, painful, but much healthier for them in the long run. So
Right.
yeah, it's just to question ourselves, or as we were saying, just I think to talk these things over with a professional, because we can make assumptions, and they seem on the surface to be the right decision to make, the honourable decision to make, but we actually might be causing more harm than we're doing good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
very,
powerful.
it is very powerful. And the other thing is, again, and I was the first to admit too that I didn't have the cookie cutter upbringing that I wanted. So therefore, I had an image, again, projection. It was my
Hmm.
image of what I wanted, and I was trying to make all the pieces fit into it, even if they were spilling over the edges and not.
Yep.
And it was a letting go of that image of I had, that this is the perfect way to do something.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. And again, going back to that hubris of staying in a relationship with somebody, thinking that you just don't want to hurt them, and you really, again, innocently, because you are hurting somebody so badly by occupying their time and their energy and their love when it's not reciprocated.
Yeah. The thing about this is also how we value our own space, our own time, our own thing. I've talked to this with clients before several times. How, and I did this myself. It's like when you stay longer in a relationship because you're afraid to jump, like to leap out of the plane as if and trust you'll get a parachute to go find the right person, because there's something that's almost like it's safer to stay where you're comfortable than risk being uncomfortable to get what you really want.
Mhm.
And so there's a part of us sometimes that we don't own our own. I won't say value is not the word I would use, but the sense of self respect, that we'll say, you know what, I'm choosing to step free of this relationship so I can have what I really want, what I really deserve, what I really want wanting, that I thought this one was, but it wasn't.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay. And doing that from a healthy place.
yeah. I'm thinking back. I know I've heard it a couple of times, and there's a cute way of saying it, which I can't remember. Obviously, I never do. But what they've done is they've described the person they're with as a space filler.
Hmm.
Or they've said to me, "Oh, I've met someone, and he's amazing, and he's been with this woman for about 3 years, but she's just a space filler." Now, that to me, if a man had ever said that to me, I would immediately have thought, number one, I mean, you just revealed who you are on every level, to ever describe another human being as a space filler. And
Yeah.
what does that say about that person? That they would diminish this person, woman they've been with for 3 years, and put the stamp of space filler while I'm off having affairs because I don't have. Or again, I can't leave them, but this is the life I live. It's just so disrespectful for the other person. And again, if anybody's out there and you're single and somebody's coming on to you and telling you that there is somebody in their life, but they're just a space filler, run. That person is not living in integrity. And nobody, I mean, I doubt he would have used the words to the woman directly. Oh, by the way, just to fill you in, you're my space filler while I go out and have affairs with other women. Do you think she'd stay
Right.
there if she knew that that's how he was describing her?
Probably not, at least if she knows her own worth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I probably not. I don't think
Yeah.
that very few people would say, "Oh, lovely, I love being called a space filler."
Actually, I want to just lean something, because you mentioned something that I want to catch on, is also the one of the challenges when you're out for when you go on your dates for the first dates sort of thing is talking about your ex in a negative term. It's tempting sometimes to try and say the past was bad. This is much better now where I am, and you're the best prospect sort of idea. However, what you're doing at the same time, like you said, is you're going to be outing yourself by describing your ex in a way that is judgmental, is blaming, is labeling them as a bad person. The person you're with is going to look at you and go, that's how you look at your ex relationships? How would I feel being in a relationship with you?
Yeah.
So if you're tempted to go that way with your ex, find a way to really navigate. And we talked about in other episodes about doing the inner work, of course, but navigate to a place where you can actually have peace with what happened. Yes, it didn't work. That's understandable. And maybe that person has got some bad habits that didn't work, but it's the habits, not who they are, that's the difference,
Mm-hmm.
which is all talking about another piece later on about this, about how we tend to judge them based on the behavior rather than judging the behavior, not them. Separating the two is a big part of the work we do with forgiveness. But understanding that that person is caught up in a behavior pattern, whatever it is, and that's okay. So when you talk to somebody new, don't bring up your old, dirty laundry for them. It doesn't add to the relationship, doesn't add to your prospects, and doesn't make you much more attractive.
That is a whole other show for sure.
I know. It just caught my mind, so I'd bring it up.
Yeah. How to discuss your ex in a positive way. It's with less intensity when you've if there's still that sort of urge to share your pain at such a deep level, that there might be some more healing necessary to go on before you enter into another relationship.
Might be.
Today's topic. So have you
Yeah.
anything else to add to this whole sort of I'm only staying with them because I can't leave? I'm just sitting here for a second thinking about this, and I know that there are people that are very ill, and their partners can't leave them or don't choose to leave them. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Because of illness, and that's a whole different situation.
Yes.
We're not talking about that. I think to stay with somebody that could be dealing with a severe illness or a terminal illness or whatever, I think that's a very honorable place to come from. We're talking more of the place of coming from deception, whether you're deceiving yourself or the other person or a third party that you're having a relationship with, but using the excuse of, well, I can't leave my wife or because of the children or my husband because of whatever. But if people are choosing to stay in a relationship because they genuinely feel that the other person would be at a complete loss if they were to leave, not in the sense of the emotional blackmail we're talking about, but if there is a reason why you feel that you can't leave, maybe as I say, is sometimes towards the end of an illness or something, a terminal illness, you are choosing to be there.
Yeah, that's a different responsibility, also a different requirement, and it is a challenge. And that's one of the things that's challenging about commitment to long-term relationship is that things happen and you can't necessarily control what's going to happen. So to presume it's all going to be cake, wine and roses, so to speak, it takes effort. So we are in this context talking about the relationships where both partners are fully autonomous and independent and can live on their own, but choosing to stay for reasons that aren't healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've covered this topic.
Planted some seeds for some more.
Well, I want to get back to the one you talked about earlier. We'll do that next week, Barry. We'll talk about being. We all come out of relationships with so, with gifts. With gifts. Some of the gifts are more positive. Some of the ones are more negative, but or hurt more. But to have processed our relationships to that point where we can be healthy in how we acknowledge them or see them or share them with our future partner or partner.
Yeah,
So,
that'd be fun.
see you next week then. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well, so go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.